If you are here to learn about digital cartography, you have come to the right place. But before we get into the details and build stuff, let's break some other stuff down. I am Timur Sol, and I'm not a professional mapper. I'm just a regular guy that decided to make maps a couple of years ago. I got a regular day job, and I regard map making as my prime hobby in which I'm pretty invested, both financially and time-wise. You can see some of my map making videos on my channel. I still remember how tough it was and how hard it was for me to get into the hobby when I first started to draw maps. I had no idea where to start. I had no idea what program I should choose and use. I had nearly no concept of what the steps are for map making. And during this last few years, I've learned a thing or two, and I want to share that. If you are new to the hobby, if you want to start mapping, want to learn something new, or maybe you are already a cartographer, but you want to see a different perspective of things, this will be the place for you, hopefully. We will start with a few basic concepts about mapping in general, that will be today, and in the next episode we'll talk about choosing a right tool for the right job, taking into consideration and into account your needs and your budget. Afterwards, I'll talk a little bit about finding your own style in mapping, but also about searching and finding proper assets that fit that style of yours. Finally, we'll start mapping, and I hopefully will provide you with some actionable tips on improving your mapping experience. We'll start with general concepts for maps and talk about little details like lights, shadows, levels, elevations, covers, visibility, and others. From that, we'll take a small trip to the real and fantasy worlds, and I'll hopefully be able to provide you with a few tricks to get your mapper's block out of the way if you ever encounter one. Finally, I'll get back to map planning again and talk a bit about how you can make your maps not only pretty, but also universally functional. So, let's start with the basic facts about digital cartography. While programs that allow you to create fantasy maps were there and are there for over 30 years, yes, you heard me right, 30 years, digital cartography exploded in the last few years. With the amazing success of virtual tabletops, called VTTs, the demand for digital maps and digital products became so widespread that it was only a matter of time for the market to respond to those needs. So new programs came into existence, and old ones became better and are becoming still better with the additional cash from new clients. COVID and lockdowns broke many tables apart and forced people to move their games online, even furthering the demand for digital products. And thus we are here. Mapping is something still done by 99% by GMs, and it still is a supplementary hobby though. Just like painting minis or gathering dice or other things. One can perfectly function without the other. You can be a mapper without being a gamer, and you can be a gamer without being a mapper. As with other supplementary hobbies, it's not something that you need to do. It's not something you need for your game to function. I'll repeat, you do not need maps. You should never feel forced to build maps and obligated to do so. Most games can be led with theater of the mind only. The feeling that you want to have here is, I want to build a map because it's something that will make my game better, it will be better for my players, but especially it will be better for me. And it's something that I want to do, not something that I'm forced to do. So before getting into the hobby, consider if you are doing it because you feel you want to do, or because you feel that it's something you are obligated to do. If it's pressure that's making you want to get into map making, it's not a motivation that will keep you going on for a long period, and your time and effort could be placed somewhere else where it's worth it. If you take out fun from map making, you get left with a pretty dull and repetitive errand. Not that I'm saying that cartography is just fun. As with every other hobby, you need a lot of time and effort to get good at it. But try to build a learning approach to it, and you'll be fine. Now, let's talk a bit about different types of maps: continent, city, and battle maps. World and continent maps are rarest, as they are a one-time gig. If you are building a whole homebrew world, you probably are aware that you need proper knowledge to do so. It's not just about plopping random cities and places wherever you want. Well, it is in a way, but at the same time not. You see, maps reflect some facets of reality, and as such, if you start building without a sense of logic, general common sense, the world immersion will fall apart faster than you anticipate. Acting haphazardly will create so many plot holes that it will be impossible for anyone not to see them, and just not to notice that they don't make sense. Our minds like to follow rules, especially those that we know. An exception can be magical in a way, but it has to be an exception. So for example, cities should always be somewhere where there's fresh water accessible in one way or another. They usually are connected with roads and routes. Glacial lakes don't have to connect to oceans, but glacial lakes don't exist near the equator. Rivers mostly flow from mountains to oceans, and they don't usually split much. And the list goes on and on. So if you're planning to build a whole world or continent map, take your time to learn some basic geography and research real-world maps. It will help you immensely. Also, be aware that continent maps are a one-time thing. You build them and you never fiddle with them again. Well, usually. For that reason, it might be actually more reasonable to use a generator that will help you do that task. And in the next episode, we'll see a few such generators of continent maps. Similar rules apply to city maps. If you want to build a city, keep in mind structures, division, quarters, districts, and other aspects that make the settlement viable, a viable place to live in. To be fair, map-wise, cities are in fact easily replaceable by a list of locations. You could easily substitute your capital city with a list of places to visit or NPCs to meet. If you want to make it more visual, you can make a locations diagram, and it will work perfectly. The real distances, architecture, and other details are seldom important in games. That is, as long as you don't run scenarios that involve burning a city quarter or a siege defense or others. But let's be real, it nearly never happens. And if it does, the real distances and miles are just background noise. Technically, both continent and city maps are a list of locations. If you decide to create a city map, you gotta be ready to ask yourself some questions like, why did the city grow in this specific place? What resources does it provide, and what resources does it lack? How does the architecture correspond with the climate and culture that the people have that live in the city? Is the city at its full capacity, or are there settlements outside the main city? There's a lot of potential things to consider, and those things could potentially influence how your map looks like in the end. And last but not least, battle maps, my beloved. Small, self-contained pieces of visual aids that have the biggest allure and biggest practical meaning for a game, depending on what game you run. This will be also the main focus of the whole series, as I feel most people want to focus on them, and no wonder. While it's easy to play with your friends using theater of the mind, it's also nice to have something that helps you visualize the scene in which the encounter is taking place. It frees up some space in your head for other things, like juggling conditions or focusing on monster tactics, and it also gives the players a space to strategize and take a more tactical approach to their decisions. Minis and terrain props exist for a reason. Battle maps have a different logic behind them. You don't need to analyze geography or demographic relationships between groups to make a good battle map. It's still good to keep some common sense and remember that rooms usually have doors, or that pools of lava don't spontaneously erupt in forests, but it's much easier to keep common sense here than with the previous two types of maps. It's also battle maps that you can spread. It's also in battle maps that you can spread your creative wings, to be honest. Any map making has also one additional advantage. It's also it's not only a way to visualize reality of your imagination, but it's also a way to sort things out, make them less cluttered and more structured in your head. The time you spent on building something with your own hands, even in digital world, it's in fact time you spent preparing for your game and for your session. Now, if the previous few paragraphs didn't scare you off, that's a good sign. Because the fact is that while we game masters don't need to make maps, and we also don't need to homebrew monsters or create magic items or table rules or make anything for our teams, we still do. After all, we are not only storytellers, but we are also creators, and cartography is one of the many ways in which you can find a place for your imagination to vent and be creative. It is without doubt an amazing feeling to create something of your own, pour your imagination into an empty image file and fill it with whatever you need. The digital aspect of it only adds to it, actually. The relatively quick effect, the usefulness, the practical structuring that happens in your brain during mapping, all that makes mapping a great experience. In the next episode, I'll talk about choosing the right software for your next step in digital cartography. We'll see over 30 programs, from automatic generators through professional fantasy mapmaking software, all the way to fancy 3D programs that create animated maps in a matter of minutes. All that said, I hope to see you in the next episode. This was an introductory episode in which I tried to lay down some basic ideas about cartography. The next episode will be more practical, and yeah, hope to see you around. Bye.